What would you do if you had to choose between holding on to love or letting it go to save another? Welcome to Happiness of Love, your daily dose of K-dramas. Get ready to fall in love with unforgettable stories. Can you tell us where are you listening from? Ethan Kong burst into the small cafe, his phone pressed tightly against his ear, a chaotic whirlwind of responsibilities swirling around him. The familiar scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air, but there was no time to savor it. He was late for a crucial meeting that could make or break his latest architectural project. In his haste, he stumbled into a table, knocking over a delicate camera perched precariously at the edge. The sharp clatter of metal hitting tile sliced through the cafe's hum. Olivia Choi, the camera's owner, wheeled around, her face animated with indignation. She was no ordinary photographer, her spirit radiated like the golden hour light she adored to capture. "Are you serious right now?" she exclaimed, her voice rising above the murmurs of other patrons. Ethan, still absorbed in his phone call, mumbled an apology as he bent down, his heart racing not just from the shock of the crash, but from the unexpected jolt of their eyes meeting. Her piercing gaze clashed with his impassive demeanor, igniting an immediate tension he couldn't shake. "You think I need your money?" she snapped as he extended a handful of bills toward her. "It's not just a camera, it holds memories, moments. You wouldn't understand." The words hung in the air, heavy with a mix of grief and resentment that broke through Ethan's cool exterior. This vibrant woman, so alive and fierce, shattered the rigid world he constructed around himself. Even as he tried to brush off her anger, something in him was stirred, an annoyance mixed with an unfamiliar intrigue. Just as he composed himself to leave, the situation intensified when Olivia, undeterred, shot back. "Maybe if you lived a little outside your plans, you'd understand what it means to truly capture a moment." He paused, caught off guard by her challenge, and something in him shifted, a crack appearing in the steel shell of his emotions. Their paths unexpectedly crossed again weeks later at a site where Ethan was managing a new construction project. Standing behind his blueprints, overlooking the machinery that tamed the chaotic landscape, he spotted Olivia again, her camera clicking fervently as she documented the juxtaposition of raw concrete and nature. This time, the tension was sharper, the air electric with their contrasting energies. Olivia, moving with an effortless grace, spun around to face him, her expression a mix of mischief and determination. "So, this is your world? Concrete and structure?" she teased, tilting her head like a curious bird. Ethan shot a look that would typically send lesser souls recoiling, but to his surprise, Olivia just laughed, the sound like music, bright and infectious. "I prefer shadows and light," she replied, gesturing towards the sun filtering through the construction beams, "but I guess you architect types only see lines and angles." With every jab, she chipped away at his facade, but he couldn't help but respond, "Maybe it takes someone to build a world to really appreciate the shapes in it." Their banter was laced with an energy that hummed like electricity, igniting a dance of connection neither had expected but both desperately felt. Yet, Ethan's rigid demeanor still held him captive, a myriad of past traumas woven into his very essence, and amid the playful jibes, there loomed unspoken shadows, his need for control clashing with her desire for freedom. As fate wove their lives tighter, a series of chance encounters began to change the fabric of Ethan's meticulously structured life. Each crossing, whether it was a brief moment in a crowded subway, another accidental bump in a bookstore where she quipped about his underwhelming taste in literature, or an unexpected rainstorm forcing them under a shared umbrella, was a tug on the strings of their hearts. Each moment sharpened the contrast between his stoic existence and her vibrant spontaneity, further igniting conflict, curiosity, and a reluctant yearning deep within him. It was a slow burn, a beautiful chaos that he both resented and craved. Their worlds were colliding in ways neither anticipated, and with each encounter, Ethan felt the carefully constructed walls around him begin to crack, weakened by Olivia's fierce spirit and unwavering belief in capturing the fleeting moments of life. In the hidden spaces of their interactions, amidst the bright laughter and sharp teasing, the beginnings of something profound started to take root, compelling and terrifying all at once. Little did they know, these early sparks were only foreshadowing the whirlwind of emotions that awaited them, intertwining their fates more than they could ever have imagined. The days following their tumultuous first encounter unfolded in a series of unexpected coincidences, drawing Ethan Kong and Olivia Choi together like unseen magnets, despite the friction that crackled between them. The atmosphere in the bustling streets of Seoul felt vibrant and charged, as if the very air was ripe with possibility. As Ethan sat in his favorite cafe, engrossed in a design proposal on his laptop, he caught sight of Olivia again, her vivid laughter ringing out as she snapped photos of a nearby mural, her excitement palpable yet foreign to him. He felt a flurry of emotions, a mix of annoyance and intrigue, wondering how someone so lively could coexist with his meticulously structured life. Unfazed by his stoic presence, Olivia tossed him a playful glance and said that he looked like he could use a break from all that seriousness, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Although he felt his lips twitching at the corner in response, he quickly buried the impulse underneath layers of practiced indifference. It was during a chance encounter at a small bookstore, the smell of old paper mingling with the scent of freshly brewed coffee where their connection simmered further beneath the surface. Ethan was immersed in a book on modern architecture, discussing firm principles, when Olivia burst into the aisle, clearly on a quest for inspiration. She couldn't help but tease him, making a remark about how the world was much more than just blueprints and concrete. He retorted that not everything could be captured through a lens, although he couldn't deny the spark of challenge her words ignited within him. Each exchange coaxed him into opening up just a fraction more, revealing the man beneath the armor of his anxiety-ridden demeanor. As they stood side by side, an unyielding early summer rain poured down one afternoon, forcing them into an old coffee shop. The rain drummed against the windows, and while the world outside transformed into a liquid blur, within the cafe, Olivia's laughter broke through the somberness of Ethan's serious thoughts. He watched her in awe as she spun stories about her impulsive decisions and moments on the road, her smile igniting a warmth in him he had long thought extinguished. Sensing the thaw of his emotional defenses, she playfully nudged him, saying there was no need to steel himself against the beauty of serendipitous moments. Just as she finished, rain-soaked yet carefree, he confessed that he could nearly see the world anew through her eyes, leading them into deeper conversations about hopes and dreams they hadn't dared to share with anyone. It was during a brilliant photography exhibition, the gallery alive with diverse images and whispers of admiration, that an unexpected turning point emerged. Surrounded by vibrancy, Olivia pulled him closer to a series of striking portraits, her voice low as she invited him into her world of light and shadow. She looked up at him, and her sincerity pierced through the fabric of his reserved personality. It was then that she asked him about the last time he experienced something beautiful. Hesitating, he stumbled over his words before admitting that he often lost himself in the demands of his job, neglecting the fleeting beauty life had to offer. With a curious glint in her eyes, Olivia led him to an older rooftop that overlooked the shimmering skyline, the twinkling lights below mimicking stars scattered against the inky backdrop of the night. There, amidst the sounds of the bustling city, she pulled him into an experience more profound than any design. She pointed out the nuances of the dusk painting the horizon, saying that life was not just about the grand moments but rather the quiet beauty of every second, urging him to embrace joy even amidst uncertainty. As Ethan stood beside her, bathed in the soft glow of twilight, he felt the walls around his heart begin to crack. For the first time in years, he allowed a flicker of vulnerability to break through, and his stoic exterior melted just enough for him to whisper that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth living for in the fleeting moments she so fervently adored. This unguarded admission hung in the air between them as they inhaled the cool breeze, a moment firmly cementing their bond while both feared the elements of their past looming on the horizon. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Olivia Choi felt a palpable excitement coursing through her veins. She stood at her window, camera in hand, observing the world come alive in the early morning light. Today, she had a plan, one that would shake Ethan Kong from the confines of his meticulously structured life. Clothed in vibrant hues, she thought of the gray world he inhabited, a world where emotions were suffocated by deadlines and blueprints. She recalled their latest meeting, how his dark, piercing gaze had softened for a fleeting moment when she spoke about capturing the beauty of the mundane. Today would be different. With an infectious cheer, she convinced him to take a spontaneous trip to the seaside, leaving behind his endless work obligations. As they drove, the clear blue sky above contrasted sharply with the anxious doubt settling in Ethan's mind. He held onto the steering wheel tight, almost as if by sheer force, he could steer his emotions, too. Olivia, sitting beside him, radiated an infectious energy, eyes sparkling with anticipation as she looked out at the passing scenery. She said that life needed moments of spontaneity, a belief that her heart condition made all too real. As they reached the seaside, the scent of salty ocean air hit Ethan like a wave, contrasting the sterile scent of his office, and as he stepped out of the car, he inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his daily life lift, if only momentarily. Olivia darted ahead, capturing the sun's shimmering reflection on the water with her camera, her laughter ringing like music against the backdrop of crashing waves. Ethan watched her, entranced, realizing that for someone who lived so precariously, she held what seemed to be boundless joy. They began to share stories as they wandered along the beach. Olivia recounted tales of a childhood spent chasing light around Seoul, her eyes sparkling brighter with every word. She shared her endless fascination for fleeting moments, telling him that every photograph was a testament to living fully in the now. In that moment, she reminded Ethan that life was about more than just survival. It was about embracing each moment as it came, with all its imperfections. She hinted subtly at her condition, the shadows sometimes lurking beneath her laughter, but Ethan brushed aside her careless remarks, still unwilling to confront the fragility that hung over her like a storm cloud. He saw only the vibrant woman before him, and for the first time in a long while, he felt warmth spreading through his guarded heart. But as dusk descended and the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the beach in twilight blues, tension flickered between them. While they sat on the sand, watching the waves embrace the shore, the conversation shifted. Ethan knew deep down that something was amiss, a heavy weight lurking within Olivia's laughter. He felt drawn to her vulnerability, the way she teased him about his rational mind, which had little room for the wild unpredictability of passion. She said that it was perfectly okay to feel life was far too brief to deny the heart its whims. Ethan felt an inexplicable sense of fear wash over him as he listened. The world was meant to be enjoyed, but what would she do with all this ephemeral beauty when it was overshadowed by her health? The thought gnawed at him like an undying tide. Hours passed, yet the connection deepened. Their hands brushed when their fingers reached for the same seashell, and for the first time, he saw a hint of longing in her eyes. But as the waves lapped gently at their feet, he felt his heart constrict. How could he let himself fall when fate wielded such a cruel hand? As they left the beach, and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Ethan's heart was torn between the blossoming feelings that warmed him and the icy fear of losing everything he had only just begun to grasp. Risk was a luxury he had long denied himself, but for Olivia, whose laughter echoed like music in the night, he felt compelled to question that denial. He could not help but be swept up by the tide of their shared moments, knowing that each second was precious but also tinged with the fragility of what lay ahead. In the back of his mind, a whisper echoed, urging him to embrace what he had uncovered, and yet the shadows of doubt loomed like storm clouds just beyond the horizon. As the days turned into an uncharacteristic silence, a gentle tension lingered in the air between Ethan and Olivia, a silence that spoke volumes more than words could ever convey. The vibrant colors of autumn spread across the city, each fallen leaf a reminder of the fleeting moments they had begun to share, yet Ethan found himself trapped, suffocating beneath the weight of emotions he had long buried deep within himself. He roamed the sterile halls of his architectural firm, the sharp corners and straight lines reflecting the rigidity of his own heart, which gradually closed up like a flower wilting in the first signs of winter. Deep down, he knew Olivia's laughter had transcended the mundane rhythm of his structured life, yet fear gripped him, stemming from a haunting memory, the fear of loss that had shadowed his every step since that night when flames consumed his childhood home, leaving him alone. In the back of his mind, he heard her soft voice, teasing him, reminding him of the beauty in letting go, but he couldn't abide by such a sentiment. Instead, he chose to retreat deeper into isolation, burying himself in blueprints and deadlines, allowing himself to forget the joy that Olivia had ignited within him, even just temporarily. Olivia, on the other hand, felt the delicate shift in Ethan's demeanor, the way his eyes grew dimmer, his laughter fading into background noise. Every time they met, he was present in body, yet his spirit seemed elsewhere, stifled under invisible chains. She withdrew into herself, her vibrant spirit now muted like the overcast skies that loomed above. Days turned into weeks and the excitement they once shared began to feel like echoes of a fleeting dream. It was unbearable for her, this silence filled with unsaid words that hung heavily between them, preventing their hearts from connecting as they once had. In those quiet moments alone, she found solace not in falling apart, but in crafting a letter that dripped with her heart's essence, filled with gratitude for the way he had dared to approach her chaotic world, sparking a connection that felt like magic. She poured out her fears in ink. "If you read this, know that meeting you was the brightest accident of my life," she wrote, trembling as she recalled the warmth of Ethan's touch and the depth of their unspoken bond. Yet she could never find the courage to send it, believing that sending the letter would only intensify the abandonment she feared was to come. And so, she held on to it, hiding the folded piece of paper deep in her drawer, a secret token of what could have been. As time crept forward, her heart ached with the absence of his presence, and Ethan felt a growing emptiness, like a hollow echo reverberating through the chambers of his life. The nights grew longer, and his thoughts drifted to her like a moth drawn to a flame, yet each moment he lingered on those memories only cemented the walls he had constructed. Walking through neighborhoods that had once felt lively and familiar, he now found a new kind of despair. Coffee shops where they shared laughter became ghost towns, and park benches where they once sat felt like remnants of a life unlived. Ethan walked past them like a melancholic specter, the world bustling around him, yet he remained untouched by its vibrancy. Every flicker of joy was dulled, and he carried the burden of unexpressed affection for Olivia like an anchor dragging him deeper into sorrow. He believed that by shutting her out, he was protecting her from the storm of his past, yet in truth, he was only creating a tempest within, growing more desperate with each passing day, lost in the labyrinth of his mind. Unbeknownst to him, Olivia was also navigating her own tempest, crafting beautiful, sun-soaked images of the world that belied the struggle within her heart. Each click of her camera captured not just art but stories that she wished Ethan were a part of, wishing he could stand beside her, his hand brushing against hers like a whisper. Her adventures took her across Seoul, yet each setting felt incomplete without him. The world felt dulled by the absence of his laughter, the way he pushed her to see beyond the ordinary. The loneliness settled in like the chill of autumn's first frost, and as she took her photographs, she could not silence the longing echoing in her heart. She missed him fiercely, but a protective instinct rooted deep inside her urged her to let him go, to allow both of them the time and space they might need to figure out what was left of their lives. Weeks passed in silence, and as Ethan returned daily to the monument of his work, he felt the weight of regret suffocating him more than the grief of loss ever had. The echoes of Olivia's laughter became hauntingly distant, a reminder of what he had let slip through his fingers. In that solitude, he grappled with an undeniable truth: he could no longer hide from the love that he dared to feel, and as he gazed out at the city outside his office, with its skyline stretching infinitely, he realized that without Olivia, every moment lost its color, each heartbeat resounding as a painful reminder of not just her absence, but of the life he had yet to embrace. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden hue over Seoul as Ethan Kong sat hunched over his desk, the cacophony of construction outside a constant reminder of the world outside the sterile confines of his office. He hadn't spoken to Olivia in weeks, each day feeling more hollow than the last as he immersed himself in blueprints and designs. Work had become his sanctuary, shielding him from the emotional tumult that Olivia had stirred within him. However, the weight of her absence gradually morphed from a gentle nudge in his heart to an unrelenting ache, as if each passing moment without her presence chipped away at the carefully constructed walls he had built. As he sifted through documents, a slip of paper slipped from the stack, catching his eye. It was a letter, crumpled and hastily tucked away, penned in Olivia's familiar elegant handwriting. He picked it up, his breath catching in his throat as he began to read the words she'd never sent. Each sentence laid bare her fears, her delicate hopes, reminding him of the radiant joy she had brought into his life along with the inevitable fragility that came with her chronic condition. She wrote about how their fleeting moments together had been some of the happiest of her life, that despite her body's limitations, she had found a love worth embracing. Ethan's heart raced as he processed her emotions, a storm of regret and understanding washing over him as he realized how much he had taken for granted. "I've been afraid," she wrote, "afraid of how much you've come to mean to me, knowing we could lose time at any moment." In that instant, he felt a dam of realization burst. He had been running away from happiness, burying himself in work rather than confronting the possibilities they could have shared. With renewed determination coursing through him, he sprang up, his heart racing at the thought of finally confessing his feelings, of embracing the very happiness he had shunned for so long. He dashed out of the office, his mind swirling, the city's vibrant pulse echoing his newfound resolve as he raced against time to find Olivia. The bustling streets blurred around him, and the bittersweet scent of spring flowers mingled with the concrete aroma of the urban jungle. His thoughts were consumed by Olivia, her laughter echoing in his ears like a siren's call, urging him to break free from the chains of his self-imposed isolation. However, as he navigated the streets, he couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The old building where Olivia had decided to work loomed over him like a specter, the site that had once been linked to the darkest memory of his past. A place of ash and loss, so close to the remnants of his childhood home it was a haunting reminder he had tried to forget. Yet here he was, driven by the fierce need to express what remained unspoken. He arrived at the building, its eerie silence sending a shiver down his spine. As he stepped inside, sunlight sliced through the dusty windows, illuminating crumbling walls and forgotten relics. The atmosphere buzzed with a mix of anticipation and anxiety, Ethan's heartbeat drumming in his ears as he called out for her, the desperation in his voice overshadowed by the shadows of the past. He moved further inside, finding himself drawn to the warmth of golden light spilling from a room at the back. As he entered, he found Olivia there, documenting the building's decay with her lens, the ethereal beauty of the moment juxtaposed against the crumbling reality around them. Ethan's heart leaped, but fear gripped him as he realized he had to act quickly before the walls that once held him captive sprang back into life, before he lost another chance to tell her how he felt. "Olivia," he breathed, urgency weaving through his words. She turned, her face lighting up at the sight of him, freedom pouring from her as she exclaimed, "Ethan, I didn't expect to see you here." However, the moment had an odd stillness to it, as if the air crackled with an unspoken warning. Everything felt unsettling, like the calm before a storm. The intimacy of their shared space wrapped around them, but as Ethan stepped closer, ready to pour out his heart, the aged structure creaked ominously, a harbinger of the tragedy lurking just beyond their moment of reunion. Ethan stepped cautiously into the old building, the air thick with dust and the scent of damp wood. Sunlight poured through shattered windows, illuminating the peeling paint and revealing a beauty in decay that he had overlooked in his grief. He was hesitant, suddenly feeling the weight of the space around him, haunted by memories that converged in an unsettling manner. It was there, amidst the shadows and beams of light, that he saw Olivia, her camera raised to capture what others might miss. She was a vibrant splash of color against the faded background, and for a moment, Ethan forgot the pain that had often kept him company in solitude. As she moved gracefully, snapping photos, the world outside felt distant and muted, lost among the whispers of forgotten stories that echoed through the crumbling walls. Olivia noticed Ethan's presence, her heart fluttering at the sight of him. There was something about her surroundings and his sudden arrival that felt cosmic, as if fate was intentionally weaving their paths in moments like this. She lowered her camera and took a step toward him, excitement dancing in her eyes like the beloved sunbeams that kissed her skin. The joy of capturing art was present, yet the anticipation surged in her heart as she felt the atmosphere shift. "Ethan," she said softly, drawing him out of his stillness, "you have to see this," her voice trailing off as she reached for his hand, urging him closer to the filtered sunlight. His uncertainty faded as he took the few steps separating them, and suddenly their air was filled with charged silence, an unsaid recognition that had been bubbling beneath their exchanges. They were no longer two souls briefly intertwined by chance but rather two hearts ready to spill their secrets. Deep within them lay an inherited fear of how fleeting these moments could be. It was a truth that bound them as strongly as invisible threads tied a fragile gift. Ethan looked closely at Olivia, seeing the light that danced in her eyes. She looked invigorated, alive in a way that stirred something dormant within him. He reached out to caress her cheek, absorbing her warmth and feeling every shield he'd constructed over the years begin to crumble. "I felt something different when I met you," he admitted with a sincerity that pierced through the reserved shell he'd crafted out of loneliness. "You make me feel human." Touched, Olivia smiled and mirrored his gesture by tracing her fingers along his jawline, her touch soft yet compelling. "If I had only one day left, I would choose to spend it with you," she said fervently, her words lingering in the air, heavy with an unspoken promise and undeniable truth. At that moment, there was no wall too high, no ocean too vast. Everything they faced outside this haven paled in comparison to the fortifying emotions that bound them. Their hearts found a rhythm together, beating in synchrony under the warmth of that sunlit sky, but as they absorbed the significance of these confessions, the building around them began to tremble as if echoing their love story with an ominous warning. It started as a quiet shudder, almost imperceptible, but quickly escalated into a violent jolt that threatened to rupture the sealed sanctity of their shared moment. Dust fell like confetti from the ceiling, raining down upon them. Panic flickered in Ethan's gaze as he instinctively reached for Olivia, feeling the temperature drop as fear rushed in, squeezing his heart. The disintegration of the beauty around them resonated with a thunderous roar, and they could hear the sound of crumbling bricks and shifting beams, a sign that echoes the fragility of their lives. "Olivia, we need to go," he shouted above the chaos, fear clawing at his chest as he stared into her eyes, seeing the panic mirrored there. In that moment, tragedy loomed, spreading its shadow as the floor beneath them groaned, and the air thickened with dust and foreboding. Struggling to process the shifting environment, Ethan lunged toward the exit, desperate to escape the encroaching peril, but Olivia stood, mesmerized by the fleeting beauty of their shared confession. The room quaked violently, and he reached out for her again, the weight of their love battling the weight of imminent disaster. Multiple beams cracked overhead, resistive debris began to crumble, and from the depths of their weekend dream, reality rushed in, threatening to separate them. As the dim light streamed through the dusty windows of the old building, the atmosphere shifted from blissful revelation to sheer terror. Ethan and Olivia stood at the edge of happiness, their newfound love crackling in the air like static electricity, but in an instant, that joy turned into disbelief as the ground beneath them trembled, a warning their hearts barely had time to register. The sound was low at first, a distant rumble that pulsated through the very walls, but quickly escalated into a deafening roar, the echo of impending disaster. Panic gripped Ethan's chest. He turned to Olivia, his eyes wide with fear, desperately wanting to assure her that everything would be all right, but the building had other plans. Just moments before, they were lost in each other's gaze, but now, as pieces of plaster and wood began to rain down, he could only scream her name in a futile attempt to cut through the chaos. Olivia's heart raced not just from fear but from an overwhelming instinct to protect. She grabbed Ethan's hand, urging him toward the exit, and for that brief moment, the warmth of her grip reassured him, igniting a flicker of hope. "We have to go now," she insisted, her voice steady and resolute, even in the face of calamity. They began to run, dodging falling debris, but as they moved deeper into chaos, the ceiling trembled ominously overhead, a fractured promise of safety lost to desperation. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline push him forward, but Olivia, ever perceptive, hesitated as the weight of her own fragility hit her like a sudden gust of wind. She had spent her whole life dancing on the edge of the impossible, and now, faced with the crushing reality of their situation, love collided with the reality of her heart condition, the one hidden from Ethan. The dust swirled around them, blurring the line between hope and despair, as Ethan slipped and stumbled, grabbing hold of Olivia's arm to steady them both. "Just a bit further," he pleaded, feeling the wild thundering of his heartbeat resonate through the ground, each sound a reminder of the peril closing in. But before they could reach the doorway, a loud crack shattered the air, sending a fresh wave of panic through Ethan's veins. The sound of collapsing bones echoed as a beam fell precariously close, and in a shocking instant, the weight of everything they stood on felt like it would give way beneath them. In a heartbeat, as the space around them twisted into a chaotic frenzy, Olivia's instincts kicked and she knew they were trapped, and the realization was agonizing. In a flash, she understood the cost of their love, and a wave of acceptance flooded over her like soothing rain, mingling with the dust and debris swirling around them. Her heart ached with the weight of her decision, and though fear clawed at her throat, she found strength in the very love she had cultivated with Ethan. "You have to go, Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, but her resolve cemented by the clarity in her heart. He would never forgive himself if he stayed, he couldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. She squeezed his hand for what felt like the last time, her fingers trembling with the knowledge of what was to come. "Promise me you'll live," she said, her voice a soft whisper amid the chaos, as if she could weave hope out of despair with her words alone. In that moment, the air thickened, heavy with the tension of their unspoken dreams and fears. Ethan shook his head, tears brimming in his eyes, the weight of the world collapsing onto his shoulders, echoing his childhood trauma of loss and abandonment. "No, I won't leave you," he said desperately, his voice breaking under the strain of his emotions as he reached for her, attempting to pull her with him despite the crumbling world spiraling into chaos around them. But Olivia's gaze was steady, penetrating through the haze of fear and alarm. She felt the urgency of the moment thrumming in her veins. In a heartbeat, she realized they could never escape together. Their love was palpable, but it was also fragile, and in the face of fate's cruel hand, she made her choice. With a force fueled by an all-consuming love, she pushed him away from the encroaching debris, her last reserves of strength seeping into the action. "Live for me," she replied, her voice a serene whisper that cut through the chaos with painful finality just as the ground collapsed around them. It was a sacrifice made in trust, a final act of love that would echo in Ethan's heart for the rest of his life. In that haunting moment, as the world turned dark with dust and despair, the realization of what had transpired hit him like an icy wave, leaving him gasping for breath amid the suffocating silence, his heart shattering as her words faded into the void surrounding him. All he could do was scream, a raw sound tinged with fury and sorrow, a guttural testament to the love torn from him before it could bloom fully. Deep within the chaos, in those last fragile moments, he would carry her whisper, an eternal flame flickering in the depths of his heart, urging him to take one more breath, to keep living in a world painted with memories of what could never be again. Ethan survived the collapse, but the triumph of life felt grotesquely empty, like a lifeboat adrift in an ocean of despair. Each day melted into the next, hours blurring into lifeless routine as he maneuvered through a labyrinth of memories, each corner haunting him with the echo of Olivia's laughter, the brush of her hand against his. Soul felt different, the vibrant streets now seemed muted, the colors washed out, as if the city shared in his sorrow. Soft rainfall drummed against the windows of his apartment, a gentle reminder of the tears he could no longer shed, while shadows danced in the corners, whispering secrets of a love that had once burned brightly. Friends and family reached out, their voices distant sounds of concern, but he remained ensconced in his cocoon of grief, barricaded against the world, a solitary figure wandering through the remnants of a once joyful life. Then, one ordinary afternoon, when the sun pierced through the clouds timidly, he heard the familiar sound of the postman's footsteps, the rustling of paper against the postal bag, a stark contrast to the haunting silence that filled his home. With reluctance, he opened the door to find a small package waiting for him, its corner slightly torn as if eager to reveal its contents. Inside, he discovered a stack of letters, each one adorned with Olivia's ornate handwriting, spilling over with the warmth of her spirit even in death. His fingers trembled as he delicately unfolded the first letter, the scent of her favorite jasmine perfume still lingering faintly in the pages, wrapping around him like an embrace he thought he would never feel again. As he read through her words, each stroke of ink on paper ignited flickers of joy intermingled with heartache. In one of her letters, she voiced her gratitude for their brief time together, a beautiful contradiction against the backdrop of her fragile existence. She had said that loving him opened her heart in ways she never thought possible, illuminating the shadows that had once claimed her. "I knew our time was short, but every moment spent with you felt infinite," she wrote, her passion pouring onto the page as if she could somehow reach him across the void that separated them. Ethan found himself enveloped in her warmth, the loss temporarily dulled by her spirit leaping off the pages, her laughter mingling with the air around him, painting the walls of his grief with hues of love once vibrant and true. With each letter, Olivia reminded him to live, not in sorrow but in gratitude for what they had shared. She scribbled encouraging words, urging him to seize each fleeting moment and embrace the world with the same adventurous spirit that had set her free, saying that life was a series of seconds worth treasuring, each one a chance for new beginnings. The letters became his lifeline, grounding him while simultaneously lifting him to skies painted with possibilities. One could almost believe that Olivia was alive in those pages, lovingly coaxing him from the depths of despair, sowing seeds of hope and light where darkness had taken root. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow across his living room, Ethan finally began to find his footing again. With every letter that he read, he could almost hear Olivia's voice guiding him, softly reminding him that she would never truly leave him if he allowed her to live on in the memories they cherished together. He could feel her in the cool breeze that drifted through the window, in the quiet rustle of the leaves outside, reminding him that love, once kindled, could survive the fiercest storms. He whispered to the stillness around him, promising he would try to carry forward her spirit, holding on to the precious gift she had given him, love in its most poignant form. He resolved that his happiness could exist alongside his grief, weaving the fabric of his life with threads of remembrance that would allow Olivia to soar free even as he carried her with him. And as he looked into the distance, he finally let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding, a small flicker of warmth igniting within, beginning to thaw the frozen edges of his heart. As time unfurled its relentless tapestry, Ethan began to navigate a world devoid of Olivia's laughter yet alive with her memories, woven into the very fabric of his days. Each morning, when he stepped onto the sun-drenched streets of Seoul, he made a quiet pledge to carry her spirit with him. He often found himself retracing their steps, wandering through the quaint bookstore where they shared fleeting moments of connection, reminiscing about the way she had teased him for being so serious, her laughter ringing in his ears like a cherished melody. Each familiar corner unveiled echoes of their shared laughter and candid conversations, and as he strolled by the cafe where their tumultuous romance had ignited, he could almost feel the warmth of her presence enveloping him like a comforting embrace. The city itself seemed to whisper her name, and in every shared glance of the bustling crowd, he sought the vibrant energy that Olivia had brought into his life, learning to observe the world through her lens, each sunrise painting the sky with an extraordinary palette of colors, the way she had once shown him during their artistic escapades. It was during one such voyage into the past that Ethan stumbled upon the festival and annual celebration that illuminated the city with a kaleidoscope of light and joy. The air buzzed with excitement, as laughter ricocheted off the walls of the buildings, infused with the tantalizing aroma of street food wafting through the crowd, and dainty lanterns lined the pathways like stars scattered on the ground. He paused, momentarily overwhelmed by the sheer beauty of the scene, as people gathered in anticipation to release lanterns, their vibrant colors dancing against the twilight sky, embodying wishes, hopes, and dreams. It was here, amidst the flurry of jubilant faces and glittering lights, that Ethan felt a gentle tug in his heart. With a lantern cradled in his hands, he gazed upwards, imagining Olivia beside him, radiant, her eyes sparkling with unfiltered wonder. The lantern felt warm against his palm, and in that still moment of reflection, he whispered a promise to the universe, his voice barely above a hush I will never forget. With slow deliberation, he lit the lantern, the flame flickering to life, an embodiment of their memories intertwined with love and longing. As he released it into the darkening sky, he watched it soar, a delicate glow against the canvas of night, carrying with it pieces of his heart, fragments of a love that had changed him irrevocably. In that moment, it was as if the lantern had become a vessel for their memories, the soft flicker of the flame eerily reminiscent of Olivia's spirit, alive, unchained, and eternally luminous. The gentle breeze whispered around him, and for a fleeting second, he felt an ethereal connection, as if Olivia was guiding the lantern, delighting in its ascent. He embraced the stillness, allowing the warmth of hope to seep into his bones, his heart swelling with the bittersweet realization that while she may no longer walk at his side, she would forever dance through the corners of his soul. Ethan reveled in the sense of her presence, a quiet assurance that love, once shared, never truly fades, it simply transforms, becomes a part of who he was and the man he aspired to be. As the lantern faded into the horizon, its glow mingling with the scattered stars above, Ethan felt a surge of gratitude wash over him. In every laugh shared, in every memory forged, Olivia had infused his life with a richness that transcended existence itself. He had learned to appreciate the beauty in each moment, to savor life's fleeting essence as she had taught him, and though the ache of her absence would forever linger, it was intertwined with a profound sense of love that knew no boundaries. In homage to their journey, Ethan turned his gaze back to the festival, joining the throng of celebration, realizing that he wasn't merely moving forward, he was carrying Olivia with him, honoring their love in every step he took, living not just for himself but for the unbroken bond they shared. Years have passed, and Ethan, though weathered by the passage of time, carries the essence of Olivia within him. With every step through the vibrant streets of Seoul, memories flood back, her laughter echoing in the corners of his mind, the warmth of her presence on sunlit rooftops, the echo of her gentle whispers urging him to embrace life. He glances at the leaves rustling in the breeze, their dance reminiscent of Olivia's exuberant spirit, and in that moment, the world feels both familiar and achingly distant. The festival night blooms with colors, lanterns illuminating the sky like shooting stars, and he pauses, feeling a gentle tug at his heart. Just then, amidst the bright chaos, he catches a glimpse of a fleeting figure in white, ethereal and serene, standing against the backdrop of shimmering lights. She faces him, her soft smile evoking a sense of déjà vu, as if the past and present have intertwined beautifully in that instant. Is it an illusion crafted by his longing heart, or has Olivia found a way to linger in his life even after everything? His breath catches as he approaches, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The deeper he steps into the moment, the more tangible it feels, the more it pulses with unspoken words and promises unfulfilled. The winds shift, wrapping around him like a tender embrace, and he hears a familiar melody just beyond the edges of memory, a song of hope, resilience, and undying love. With the lantern still clutched in his hand, he feels gratitude overflowing. He whispers her name, knowing that even in absence, Olivia never truly left him. As the lanterns continue to rise, so does his spirit, bound by a love that transcends time and loss. The camera pans out, capturing Ethan standing in the midst of a sea of flickering lights, a figure embraced by memories and the fervent hope of new beginnings. Fate may have drawn them apart, but with Olivia's enduring spirit lighting the way, he embraces the uncertainty of what lies ahead, ready to explore the beauty in life once more. The night air vibrates with possibility, and just like that, the screen fades to black, but the story of Ethan and Olivia remains alive in every heart daring to love, whispering that sometimes, love, once ignited, can never extinguish, hinting at stories yet to unfold, adventures yet to be discovered. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Happiness of Love. That way, you won't miss any of our heartfelt romances. See you in the next love story.